Good evening, how we are doing? This evening, we're going to be looking at the root of some of the words in our language. And one of the words we'll be looking at is the word chi. Chi, that is primarily it means God in the Igbo language. You're going to be looking at how that word came about, as well as several other words that we can't even count, and how they actually sprung forth from a Hebrew root. Now, without further delay, the first words we are going to be looking at is the word we call head. Now, in the Igbo language, there's one way of saying head, but there are several dialects that express it in different ways, okay? Now, primarily you will hear Ishi, there is also Ishi, and there is one other one which is less common, which is Rishi. Rishi. Now, what is interesting about the Rishi is that the people who speak it, who are the Ikwere people, they're always taunted that they added an R to the word, that is not the original way of saying it. Well, I'll have you know here and now, as ironic as ever, it turns out that the way the Ikwere people call it, which is Rishi, is actually closer to the original form of the word. And that is actually the reality. Now, we call it, many of us call it Ishi, many of us call it Ishi, and they call it Rishi. Now, going into the etymology of that word Rishi, it turns out that Rish, the word Rish, is actually the way the Hebrews express head. Just as I mentioned the Igbo way, which has three several ways, the Hebrews also have three ways that they say head. They have Rish, they have Rosh, and they have Rish. Now, these words are very, very important. Bear them in mind. Now, the first one, Rish, is actually where our own word came out from. So, Rishi in the Ikwere dialect is actually the original way of calling head. We have Ishi in other dialects, and we have Isi. Now, the process by which the R got lost in the other dialect is known as elision. And we are not going to look too much into elision because it's delving into linguistics, but just look it up. Elision is where you jump some certain sounds to make your language shorter in communication. So we'll leave it at that, and that is how the other dialects lost the R. Okay. Now, looking at those three set of words, as I mentioned before, we have Rish, Rosh, and Rish. Now, the word for head is not the only word we discovered during research that came out from these three Hebrew words. There are several other words. Now, the second word we'll be looking at is the word we call old, anything old, previous, past, former. We use the word Oche or Oche. Now, it turns out that the Oche, if you consider that we have dropped an R from this word, you will then understand that the word we call Oche is actually from Rosh. Is actually from the Hebrew root Rosh. Now, in the Hebrew language also, this Rosh is connected to these meanings. This Rosh is used in several ways to mean old, previous, past, or former, while us call it Ochie. So you have Rosh on their side, we have Ochie on our side, okay? Now, going further, this is just how many words now? About 4 or 5. There is also another word in the Igbo language that we never knew came out from Hebrew, and that is the word we call tomorrow. In the Igbo language, one of the most common ways of saying tomorrow is Echi, Echi, Echi. Now, it turns out, just as the other words we talked about, this word also came out from one of these three words. It came out from Rishi. Now, that Rishi is actually meaning head, but it also means front. It means front. So it turns out that the word we call tomorrow in the Igbo language is actually front, the day in front in Hebrew. So that is actually a shocking one. So when our ancestors were saying, Naiga Fuechi, they were actually saying we are going to see the day in front. So that is how that word came about. But it didn't stop there. Just if you can count how many words, I assure you that you will lose count eventually. Now, this word Echi that came out from Rishi, we dropped the R, as I said earlier. We dropped the R in many dialects. Now, this Echi is actually where the word Uchichi came out from. Uchichi means to coronate, to make somebody a chief and all that, to coronate. It turns out that the Uchichi, the older Igbo people, when they say Uchichi, it actually means to put somebody at the front, to make somebody, to bring somebody from out of the ordinary populace and put them at the front, make them a leading figure, to make them a prominent figure. And that is exactly what coronation does. So the Ochichi came out from Rish to mean front, as you can see in the illustrator. Okay, now it turns out that the Ochichi also brought out another word which we know as Ochichi. Ochichi means leadership today. So Ochichi actually came out from Echichi. Now, it didn't stop there, because it turns out this one is actually going to be surprising, because you wouldn't expect it. It turns out that the Ochichi became contrasted over time. So as you say Ochichi for leadership, another way of presenting Ochichi is actually Oche. Oche, as we used to refer to chair today, is actually at the root, it is connected to leadership. So that Ochichi, take for instance, in on Ochichi, in on Ochichi, in on Ochichi. From in on Ochichi, Igbo people started to say in on Oche. So Oche primarily meant leadership, but as time goes on, it is now used to refer to chair. And that is why even till today, if you remember our folk song, when Umbe was telling Eni, that is the tortoise promised the elephant that Igano n'isi oche. Isi oche then means in a place of leadership. So that is what we tell you, that Oche primarily, or at an older time, was used to refer to leading or ruling or leadership. But today it means just any chair. Okay, so Oche actually came out from Ochichi. And also from Oche, joining Oche and Ishi, then you have Isi Oche. So Isi Oche now means a place of prominence. You will be in a place of prominence, in a place of authority. This is how these words came about from the Hebrew. You can see how these words actually were joining themselves together from 3,000 years back into what we have today. So at the root, you are now beginning to recognize that Igbo is just a varied form of Hebrew. However, these are not the only ones that came about. I'm telling you that if you count along what I'm telling you, you might lose count eventually, because it didn't stop there. Now, the other meanings of these three words, that is this Rish, Rosh, and Rish, this word means head across three different ways of saying it in Hebrew. But it doesn't stop there. What do I mean? In the Igbo language also, the word Ishi is used to mean several things apart from head. The word Ishi is used to mean chief, which we call Ichi. Only Ichi, is actually from Ishi, is actually from head. From Ishi also, we used to refer to beginning. I'm trying to bring out something here. Just follow me patiently, okay? From Ishi, we also brought out the meaning for beginning. Genisi, go to the beginning, or Bidonisi, start from the beginning, okay? Ishi is also used to refer to top, to first, to high, to benefit. Ishi is also used to mean the end of something. An Igbo person, when there's a dispute, you might hear Igbo people say, Aniga folili siata. That is to say, we are going to see the head today. But actually, that head there contextually means end. We are going to see the end of it today. Okay? Now, it turns out that all these things I've listed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All these things are the exact way it is used in Hebrew also. Purely. You can see it in the illustrator. The word Ishi or Rish in the Hebrew language or Hebrew dialect of Israel today is also used to refer to these 9 things. So as it is in Igbo, so it is in Hebrew, purely so. Just a slight variation in spelling. So you have Rish in Hebrew and you have Ishi in many dialects in Igbo, but Rishi maintained in Ikure dialect. Now, all these things do not stop there, because as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I said the word we call God, Chi, actually sprung forth from this Hebrew root. And we are going to see it now. Now, if you remember what I said while I was talking earlier, I said the word for front in the Hebrew dialect is Rishi, and it is from there we brought out Echi for tomorrow, the day in front. Okay, now it turns out that from that Echi we brought out Ichi. Ichi means to be at the front, just as Echi means the day in front. Okay, Ichi means to be at the front. And also, by general meaning, it means to be in the lead. Now, while Ichi means to be in the lead, the simpler form of Ichi is actually Chi alone. Chi without the preceding E sound. Okay, so it is Chi alone. That Chi is what we call God. When you give it personification, the quality of personification, the Chi now also means leader. Know it today that Chi means lead or leader. It also means the head. So God is the head of the Igbo race. The overall head of the Igbo race is God himself. All these things will just tell you that the Igbo, as I mentioned earlier, is a variated form of Hebrew. A variated form of Hebrew that has evolved separately from the Hebrew in Israel. But now we continue because it doesn't stop there. Now, even talking about the personal Chi, before I go ahead, there is something called spirituality. Spirituality in Hebrew, in Israel today, spirituality in general, that is worship of whatever kind, veneration of the spiritual life and all that. Hebrew word for it is called what? Rukani. I just want to chip this in. Rukani means spirituality in Hebrew. You can go and verify anywhere. Now, this is interesting because when you go down to the Ikwere dialect, spirituality, veneration of the ancestors, of the spirit and all that, spirituality is called what? Rukani in the Ikwere dialect. Rukani in the Ikwere dialect, Rukani in the Hebrew dialect of Israel today. The same word, the same meaning. We keep going. Now, this is another part of the video that I personally find interesting, and that is the other ways we use the word Chi in the Igbo language. This will be more or less the closing part of the video, so it doesn't, extend too long. The Igbo people use the word Chi, which means lead or leader or God, in diverse other ways. One of the ways the Igbo people use the word Chi is to mean natural daylight. Now, a lot of people know this, Chi for God and Chi for natural daylight, but they don't know the connection. It is not a coincidence that the old Igbos called daylight Chi, because the old Igbos were actually Hebrew people completely. They saw God as pure daylight, so they called it Chi also. So since you have Chi for daylight, you must also have a name for the night time. And one of the names of night time is Uchichi. Uchichi meaning end of light or termination of light. Okay, so Chi for daylight, Uchichi for the night time. Now we keep going. This Chi also, since the old Igbos used it to refer to daylight, so it is also expected that they used it to refer to a day, and that is Ụbọchị. Some will call it Ụbọchị or Ụbọchị. Anyhow you want to call it, the root there is the Chi or the C sound. The Chi and the C is virtually the same thing, okay? That is breaking forth or revealing of the light, because Bo means reveal or break forth, okay? So that word day actually explains the breaking forth of the light in one day. Now, several other words that came out from Chi also is all the words that carry the suffix Chi. Any Igbo word, we can't begin to count it, it's not possible. Any Igbo word that carries the ending Chi actually came out from this Chi word. Any word carrying the Chi as a suffix, it's talking about stopping something or ending something or terminating something. If we can take few examples. Mechi, when they tell you Mechizie, Mechi is actually Mechi. Mechi, that is do an end or do a stop to whatever you are doing. If you want to say Mechiziafia or close your shop, it's actually do a stop to trading. Mechiafia. If you want to say something like Uchi, maybe like Okuchimoza, like somebody is actually, blocked your way. Uchi there is actually Okuchi. That is stand to an end. That is, he stood and ended my way. That is actually what that word means from the Hebrew understanding, So all these things are related. I can't keep going. There are more and more words. There are more things that came out from all this, but I will leave this so that people can ruminate on this for a while. All these things help you to understand how our ancient, people were living in this part of the world after they left their home, after they were actually scattered from their home in Israel at an earlier point in time, almost 3,000 years ago. So ruminate on this, very important. Look through this, think on it, and you can see the connections in all our words that only Hebrew can show you. There's no anywhere you would have been able to connect this word without looking at the Hebrew roots. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. I'll end it here. See you on another video. Bye.